Hi guys, I wanted to talk a bit about Phenibut today and my experience with it. It's seen by some people as a nootropic and it's seen by others as a recreational drug. I should say up top I had a very bad experience with this drug and I don't like it and I won't be taking it again, ever. So the way I found it was I was looking for something to take at the end of a night or at the end of a few days of taking speed. I mentioned in a previous video how me and my ex-girlfriend used to like taking GHB after a speed session. And after moving to Spain, it was hard to find GHB. And in general, it became harder for me to find illegal drugs. It was much easier to order legal stuff off the internet. So I got more into research chemicals and stuff. Even for example, I went from typically using street amphetamines to using more like legal ones, like stimulants and stuff. So I was looking online and one of the options was benzos, but that didn't have the same, recreational appeal as GHB. And I saw that other people were using Phenibut. A lot of people said they used Phenibut after taking speed and said it was amazing. It was like a really great way to come down from speed. I'm just to check my settings here. One sec. Yeah, cool. Sorry. They said it was a really good way to come down from speed. So I thought, cool. And some of the details of this are a bit murky, but basically ordered a bunch online. I think it came from France or something. And I ended up ordering very big quantities of it because it was a bit of a nuisance to order. I guess we tried it by itself. And again, I'm sorry, I don't remember the details of this exactly. I remember the important bits. And for me, it was quite important to remember because it was such a bad experience. We ended up ordering a huge batch of it, or not a huge batch, but enough, like a good amount. We started taking it on its own, like not with speed, And the weird thing about it is it's very subtle. Like you don't really get high from it. It's certainly not like taking GHB. It's very different to GHB. GHB, you take like a dose and you feel fucked, and you know that you're on drugs, and you don't necessarily need to take that much more, and you just sort of cap it off there. Phenibut, a lot of people who take it, they take very low doses, or actually, comparatively in relative terms, the doses are huge. Like 1 gram is an imperceptible, almost imperceptible amount of it. I guess maybe not if you don't have a tolerance, but people will often take 1 or 2 grams just to for work or for social events or for things like that. 4 grams, if I remember correctly, I might be getting these doses completely wrong, but I think 4 grams is considered like a pretty high dose. That's like the most you're supposed to take for recreational use. And even that is considered a bit silly because this drug really, really, really hammers your GABA receptors. We started taking it a lot, and I think at first, I was enjoying it. My ex wasn't really sold on it, but we used to we had this habit we'd built up from the past of taking drugs and just going for really long walks, and it was a good way to lose weight and just enjoy drugs and enjoy the city and stuff. And it was during the pandemic, so there weren't that many people around. It was pretty cool. It was in the summer and in the evenings. Valencia is a really, really, really incredibly beautiful city, and now that the tourists are back, I fucking hate it. It's awful when the tourists are here, but it's fine, but not for me. But when it was quiet during COVID, man, I knew a guy actually who went to Barcelona right as the pandemic broke out, and he said that him and his girlfriend were walking the streets of Barcelona, and they were empty. and they were able to see everything. I don't know if they were allowed or they just did it anyway, but he said basically they just explored everything in Barcelona with like nobody there because there were no incoming flights or anything. Sounds awesome. And it was a bit like that here. It was really cool. It was still busy enough, but you know, it was just after the first lockdown. So yeah, we would just walk around for hours, and the problem was we kept thinking like, oh, I don't really feel it. Like, you know, you want more from it, especially us, because we were used to like stronger drugs. So we would often like go back home really, you know, straight away after leaving and be like, let's take more, and then go out again. And we'd end up taking, you know, we'd take like 4 grams, and then we'd like top it up with 2 grams, and then we'd be like, oh, this isn't really working, blah, blah, blah. And it was very frustrating. It was constantly frustrating, but also it was quite hard to stop. And we kept doing this. We then used it with speed. And actually, I mentioned in the previous video on amphetamines this weird experience I had where I started uncontrollably talking in crazy accents and voices and developed like kind of Tourette's syndrome or something. I believe actually, now that I think of it, I believe that was actually on Phenibut and speed. I think it was like free FPM and Phenibut. I'm not sure. Free FPM is a stimulant, a research chem stimulant. Anyway, so we took it with, yeah, and we didn't enjoy it quite as much as using GHB with amphetamines, but yeah. And then we would just continue taking it afterwards, and I think we realised like this is a bit silly, and we got off it and stopped taking it. I mean, I was taking it at work. I was like on it pretty much all the time, and the thing is, you still feel it the next day because it lasts a really long time. So I would wake up feeling great, thinking this stuff isn't having a bad effect on me, like this is fine. So then I would wake up, and because you wake up and you're on it, you're intoxicated, so your decision making is altered, so you're like, fuck it, let's do it again today. So we were just doing it every day for a while. And I think, again, sorry, the details are a bit murky. I think we stopped, maybe just because we ran out. I don't know. But then, and I would go out on exercise and stuff. I'd go for my morning runs and stuff, and I'd still be on it. And I remember I was like sweating so much, and I felt good. I felt really good, and it just made me. Just at that time, I felt like everything was great. Like, you know. Like my work was going well, and I was exercising, and I felt physically really good. I didn't realise it was because I was kind of always high on this stuff round the clock. So we had a break, and then we needed more, and we thought maybe it had gotten stuck. The order hadn't arrived. We thought there'd been a problem. So we ordered another one, which I think was even larger, and basically we ended up with shitloads of it. We ended up with like loads, way more than we needed. We'll just say this is all fictional, because I don't know what say this is a fictional story. This is for a screenplay I'm working on. Yeah. And so we ended up with tons of this stuff. And but obviously I don't need to explain what happened next. We basically started taking it all the time again, and the doses got higher and higher, and it got to a point, I think we were taking like 12, 14 grams a day. We started putting it up our asses. There's a video of me, it was Vampire Weekend playing, not in concert or anything. I wouldn't do such a wretched thing at one of their shows. I may have done it at the time, to be fair. And I had like my dick out and everything, and I was like walking around with this syringe, and I was fucking squirting Phenibut up my ass, and we got really weird. Because the reason for doing that was because it takes a really long time to kick in, and it's really hard to redose orally, and it takes forever. So some people say if you just squirt it up your ass, it kicks in much quicker. And I guess it worked. It was never fun, really. I always felt sick on it, and if you took enough to feel like you were on drugs, you just felt sick. So you would get this trace of a kind of GHB type high, but it was doing a number on your brain, and you just physically felt weird and sick, and you're having to consume so much of this shit, this fucking powder. It's like so much of it. Like imagine, like, you know, 12 grams. Imagine taking 12 grams of anything. That's so much. And that is way, way more than you're supposed to take. People get fucked up from a year of taking like a gram a day, you know. And for us, yeah, this was a short period, but it escalated like very, very rapidly. And it was also, it became a bit like, we would walk around town and it's just like, some of the women here are so hot. And like, I don't know if anyone else had this experience, but I found like when everyone had the masks on, like, it just suited some women, I think. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because there's an element of mystery, so your imagination just assumes this person's really hot. There was just like insanely hot women everywhere, and it was very hard on Phenibut to like be like respectful of my ex and stuff, and not be like, and it just became like it just became a bit disgusting, really, to be honest. Like, I was just like, because I was just fucked up all the time, and it just makes you really horny, and yeah, anyway, so we'd just walk around, and it was just like, it's just a bad vibe. We'd walk around and we'd like look for food and go to the shops, and I would just like stare at women, and like we'd have weird conversations and just feel weird, and both of us were quite aware that we were quite like in over our heads with this stuff. And it was very short-lived. It wasn't a long period of time, but of all the experience I've had with drugs, this was the only time where I felt like, wow, I really like, this is really bad. We tried getting off it, and I remember now, yeah, we had previously gone through a pretty rough detox period from it and gotten over it, and that was what was so fucking stupid, was we'd gotten right to the end of this like detox period when we got more, and we should have thrown it away, you know. And we got right to the end of this period, and then like we were in the clear, and we started taking it again. Anyway, so this whole second period of it, where it was much worse, taking shitloads. It wasn't fun. We just obsessively like walk around supermarkets and stuff, and like try and like, I don't know, it was just a weird way of having fun. And as I say, I was behaving like a fucking weirdo. And yeah, then I guess at a certain point, I don't know, it was like fucking everything up, and we were having a really weird time, and we were starting to feel really like funny, and we felt like we couldn't stop. And eventually we got to a point where like I decided just to flush it down the toilet, basically, because I was talking to a friend who had experience with it, and he was adamant that this stuff was bad, if I remember correctly. And I was like, yeah, it does seem like it. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I just had the impulse to flush it down the toilet this one night, which maybe made it harder to wean off it, but it was probably a good thing, because it was quite a lot, and we could have easily like extended this whole period. So I did that, and then for weeks afterwards, we've just felt so fucking weird. There was a period of about, I think there was a couple of days where we felt okay, because it was still in our system, and then it was fucking awful, like terrible. There was about 2 weeks, maybe more, where we didn't sleep, basically. It was about 2 weeks where we would lie down in bed all night, and you know those nights where you're lying down and you the whole night you're awake. Maybe you lose consciousness for like a second, you know, you just like, you know that there was some point where you lost awareness, but you also know that you were awake for hours and hours and hours and hours. You basically didn't sleep. We had that for about 2 weeks. It was pretty much 2 weeks of no sleep, which was it was crazy. We were getting into bed at like 9:30 and like reading books, listening to audio books to to try and make ourselves tired. We were just doing everything we could. We were doing loads of exercise in the day. We were doing absolutely anything we could to try and sleep, and we just could not sleep. And we felt fucking terrible, like just the worst. It was awful. It was so fucking depressing. Anxiety all the time, constantly depressed. It was so hard to function. It felt like being underwater or something. It was so horrible. And a lot of people have had this experience with Phenibut, like a lot. If you look on the QuittingPhenibut Reddit, there's people who've had horrific times with it. And seemingly it goes away eventually, but for some people it can last a year, 2 years, 3 years even. I think maybe 3 years is a bit extreme, but it can be like a year or two before people feel normal, and no one then knows if they're completely normal again. But it takes a seriously long time to recover. And the thing is that if for example, if I were to start doing it again now, the effects would be way worse, because it's something to do with the period of recovery, and then you do it again, and I don't know, it has a really intense kindling effect, basically. Like the more you do it, the exponentially worse the side effects become. So people end up in a really bad way, especially people who consistently relapse with it. There's some sad stories online about this stuff. People have just messed themselves up, and a lot of people use it as like a study drug. I think not a study drug, but like, they use it for like anxiety when they're studying stuff. So they just fuck up their degree, they lose their job, they fucking fuck up their relationship. It's just awful, and for nothing really. I mean, it makes you feel more confident, makes you feel a bit better, but it doesn't. I mean, it's people talk about like a miracle drug. People refer to it as the drug from Limitless, that film. Maybe if you take small doses and you manage it correctly, but no, man, I would recommend to anybody, just fucking stay away from it. Much better things you can do with your time and money. It's not even fun, or at least I didn't think it was. So yeah, we went through this. We couldn't sleep, and we in a way we found ourselves quite well. It was so bad, I think we didn't have the choice to like self-destruct and turn on each other. So we actually were really good with one another. It probably helped that neither of us really had like I was working a bit, my ex didn't have a job at the time, so we were able to like focus on recovering. And she was great. She was doing a lot of things that were not, it was normal for me to like exercise and stuff, but she got really into that stuff as well. And I was getting up every morning when I hadn't slept, and every morning I would just get up and go for a run. And like, we took it pretty well. I don't know why. We just both took it very well, despite how horrible it was, and that helped. But yeah, 2 weeks no sleep, and then for weeks following that we just felt weird. We would talk about it months later, we'd be like, I still feel fucking weird, like I still don't feel right in the head. And it was a short period of time. Most people's Phenibut abuse, it's more prolonged and it's less intense, and I think that's actually worse. But for us it was a relatively short period of a few months, but a few months of fucking massively overdoing it. Yeah, it's so not worth it. I mean, look, I know drugs like GHB and stuff, they have their pitfalls. They're not by any means perfect substances or things that everybody should be doing. But Jesus, I mean, you take it and you fucking get high, and then a lot of people get addicted, obviously, but I think a lot of the time you can be like, cool, I've had my fill, don't want to do that for a few weeks, and that's that. I did my drugs. Phenibut, it was like being sort of teased. It was like really frustrating and moreish, and maybe it was just a bad time. I mean, that whole couple of years was or whatever, that whole year or so was bad. It was really tough. It was, the summer of 2020, I think everybody knows, was fucking nuts. Really bad. A lot of bad stuff going on in the world, a lot of weird stuff happening, and it was just post lockdown, and everything was very, very hard around then. Yeah. So that was our Phenibut experience. Curious to know if anybody else has had any similar ones, and yeah, please avoid this drug. I really think you should avoid it. I don't want to speak on behalf of everybody or lecture people or whatever, but yeah, I just don't think it's worth doing. Cool. All right, bye. Oh, I've remembered a funny thing. it's kind of disgusting, sorry, but we, one time on this, we were, it was around the time when we were doing a lot of this like chemsex stuff, and we were having sex in our apartment, and it had like French doors, and we were having like really like over the top like pornographic sex, and we closed the French doors, but we saw afterwards there was we finished basically, and then we looked and we saw that one of the other doors was just like wide open, and it was summer and everybody's windows were open, people were like on their balconies, all our neighbours could hear us like right next to the door. And like, man, I remember like I remember looking over at the door, like we finished, and it was like, because we were on drugs and we were going through this whole weird period, like it was just very over the top sex basically, like, and I remember looking over and seeing this door open and just freezing. I was just looking at the door like, and I like tapped my girlfriend on the shoulder and I just slowly pointed towards the door like, and she looked over and we stopped and stared at each other in just stunned silence for literally like a minute straight, just like, and just frozen. The guy who lived above us, his balcony was right above, and he was fucking annoying. He was like a real nosy neighbour, and he was like always talking to us from the balconies and stuff. He was so weird, man. I got to talk about him sometime. He was a fucking weirdo. But anyway, his daughter had come to stay, and she was like 5 or something, or like 7, and she had been staying for this brief period, and they were always, you always have the doors open. It was summer in a fucking hot country. Everyone's got all their doors and windows open. We could always hear people all the way up and every side. So many neighbours around. Oh man, it was fucking awful. Like it was so just. I just hate stuff like that. Anyway, I really hate like I just hate when you go out somewhere and it's like you just find like a used condom on the floor or something, and like a nice park or so. I hate when like people impose their fucking degeneracy on like others, like I really seriously don't like that. And it was horrifying to have accidentally done, man. I remember looking at this door and being like, is there any way we can just somehow just change what happened? There was nothing we could do. Absolutely nothing. One of those things you just have to take it on the chin. Like, maybe it's not that bad. I don't know though. For me, it was like, oh, fucking awful. I remember just closing the door and just sitting down in just complete silence and staring at the floor for like half an hour and just being like, that is just so fucking embarrassing and disgusting. Yeah, right next to the door, man. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. If someone did that, I would hate them so fucking much. Like, I think I would go around there and tell them, like, you're a fucking piece of shit. Oh, it was terrible. Absolutely terrible. Anyway, yeah, cool. Phenibut. Well, not cool. No. Just say no. Just say no to Phenibut. No, fuck it. Do what you want. It's not up to me. Alright, laters, guys. Bye. Oh, also, we made a video at the time, during the peak of this whole Phenibut thing, when we massively overdosed on it and made ourselves really sick, and it was not good and should not be, like encouraged, but it was pretty funny, the video. It was to promote our podcast, so I'll link that video in the description and in the comments if you want to see it. It's pretty absurd. Also, I should clarify, because this is important to her, my ex she's extremely beautiful. She looks really bad in this video, or at least by her standards, because we were like really bloated from drugs, and she was like really sick, and there's a lot of very unflattering angles, and for her it was like, we really found this video very funny, but for her it was kind of like she didn't really want to upload it because like she's very attractive. She gets like, you know, much sometimes to like my chagrin, like like men really like her, but she by her standards looks pretty awful in this video because of like the situation, and yeah, I clarify it with that caveat because she finds the video quite embarrassing, and I understand why, because she doesn't appear in much of our like video content, and this was the first time she did for our show, so yeah, for her it was like an extremely embarrassing thing, but the video is pretty fucking funny anyway, so yeah, I recommend checking that out, and check out our show if you like the video. Cool. Alright, later guys.